Could true love last a lifetime, even when faced with betrayal and forbidden passion for over 1,000 years from the 5th to the 15th centuries? Could a single touch, a whispered secret, or an accidental potion change the course of kingdoms and destinies, leaving an impact that echoes through centuries of storytelling? Number 10. Floris and Blanchefleur. Tale of Floris and Blanchefleur unfolded in a world of princes and captives, spanning across different lands and cultures, captivating audiences across Europe in various forms from the 12th century onwards. The original French poem Floris et Blanchefleur introduced this enchanting story to medieval readers, detailing a love so pure it defied every obstacle imaginable. In the narrative, Floris was a Muslim prince, the son of King Felix of Sicily, while Blanchefleur was a Christian noblewoman brought to his court as a captive. Despite their vastly different backgrounds and stations, they were raised together from infancy, sharing lessons, games, and the simple joys of childhood. Their nurseries, the poems often state, were side by side, fostering an unbreakable bond between them. As they grew, this innocent affection blossomed into a deep and unwavering love, a passion that consumed their thoughts and dictated their every action. The chroniclers of their story emphasized the intensity of their connection, describing how they would secretly meet in gardens, exchanging vows of eternal fidelity, their hearts intertwined in a way that defied the expectations. The problem, as it often was in medieval romances, lay with Floris's parents, King Felix and Queen Florette. When they discovered the burgeoning romance between their son and the Christian captive, they were horrified. Prince, heir to a powerful kingdom, could not possibly marry a captive, let alone one of a different faith. Their dynastic ambitions and societal conventions dictated a different path for Floris, one that involved a marriage to a princess of suitable royal lineage. The king and queen, determined to separate the young lovers, devised a cruel plan. They waited for Floris to be sent away on a hunting trip, and in his absence they sold Blanchefleur into slavery. The price of her freedom from their court was said to be a remarkable amount, 400 marks of silver, which was presented as a sum that would ensure she was taken far away and never seen again by their son. This act of calculated cruelty, designed to break the bond between the young couple, became the catalyst for Floris's epic quest. When Floris returned and discovered Blanchefleur's absence, his grief was immense. The poems described him as inconsolable, collapsing in despair, his life losing all meaning without her. His parents, initially pleased with their cunning, soon realized the depth of their son's anguish. He threatened to take his own life, and his sorrow was so profound that they feared for his sanity. It was at this point, observing his torment, that the queen relented slightly. She revealed that Blanchefleur had not been killed, but had been sold and taken to a distant land. This sliver of hope reignited Floris's spirit, transforming his despair into a fierce determination. He resolved to find his beloved, no matter the cost or the distance. He gathered his resources, preparing for a perilous journey, determined to reclaim the woman who held his heart. Floris's quest was long and arduous, filled with the typical dangers and wonders of a medieval romance. He traveled across seas and lands, encountering various characters who either aided or hindered his progress. His journey was a testament to his unwavering devotion. He learned that Blanchefleur had been purchased by merchants and eventually sold to the Emir of Babylon, a powerful ruler known for his magnificent tower, within which he kept a harem of beautiful women. The Emir's tower was a marvel of engineering, a legendary structure with 7 stories, each housing 100 maidens, guarded by strict protocols and impenetrable walls. To enter this fortress, to even hope to find Blanchefleur among so many women, seemed an impossible task. Yet Floris was undeterred. Upon reaching Babylon, Floris employed cunning and charm to gain entry into the Emir's tower. he befriended a sympathetic gatekeeper, bribing him with gifts and promises, eventually convincing the man to help him gain access. Disguised as a master craftsman, or sometimes as a traveling merchant, Floris managed to infiltrate the seemingly impregnable tower. The story often recounts how he hid himself in a basket of flowers or a laundry basket, being smuggled past the watchful eyes of the guards. Once inside, the challenge became even greater. How could he identify Blanchefleur among the 700 women, especially when many of them resembled one another due to the emir's preference for similar beauty? He learned of the emir's custom of choosing 2 maidens each night for his company, and that on a certain day Blanchefleur was due to be chosen. This heightened the urgency of his search. With the help of the sympathetic gatekeeper, Floris navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the tower. His devotion was so strong that he sensed Blanchefleur's presence, or perhaps it was fate guiding his steps. He eventually found himself in the chamber where Blanchefleur resided, surrounded by other maidens. In one version of the story, he hid under a rosebush within her private garden, observing her. In another, he discovered her through a small token, a ring or a piece of jewelry they had exchanged in their youth. The reunion was dramatic and emotional. Blanchefleur, upon seeing Floris, was overcome with joy and disbelief, convinced that he was a ghost. Their tears flowed freely as they embraced, reaffirming their unbreakable bond after such a long and painful separation. Their joy, however, was tinged with the perilous reality of their situation. They were in the heart of the emir's stronghold, and their discovery would mean certain death. They decided to spend the night together, a brief reprieve in the midst of extreme danger. The narrative often highlights the tenderness and purity of their rediscovered love, emphasizing that their bond transcended mere physical desire. The next morning, as fate would have it, the emir's guards discovered them. The punishment for such an offense was immediate execution. Floris and Blanchefleur were dragged before the emir, their lives hanging by a thread. The emir, enraged by the audacity of their defiance, prepared to condemn them. Yet, as the story unfolded, their unwavering devotion, their willingness to die for each other, deeply moved the emir and his court. In a surprising turn of events, a noble or a wise counselor spoke on their behalf, arguing that such a profound and unwavering love, even if it defied his authority, deserved clemency. The emir, witnessing their absolute commitment, found himself softened by their story. He realized that such loyalty was rare and worthy of respect. Instead of execution, the emir granted them their lives, a moment of extraordinary mercy. In a world of harsh justice, not only that he allowed them to marry and return to Floris's kingdom, this unexpected happy ending distinguished Floris and Blanchefleur from many other medieval romances that often ended in tragedy. Floris and Blanchefleur returned to Sicily, where Floris's parents, having witnessed their son's ordeal and the depth of his love, finally accepted Blanchefleur. She was baptized, often recounted as a voluntary act of embracing Floris's culture, though some versions suggest she remained true to her Christian faith. And Floris converted. The ending varied slightly across different cultural retellings, but the core outcome remained the same. Their love triumphed over all adversity. Floris eventually ascended to the throne, and Blanchefleur became his queen. They ruled justly, their love story serving as a testament to perseverance, devotion, and the power of true affection to overcome all societal barriers and geographical distances. A story that echoed through the medieval literary landscape for generations. Number 9. Yvain and Laudine. The stirring account of Yvain and Laudine found its most celebrated form in the masterful hands of Chrétien de Troyes, a French poet of the late 12th century, known for his groundbreaking Arthurian romances. His work, Yvain, the Knight of the Lion, presented a nuanced exploration of love, honor, and the challenges of balancing knightly duty with marital commitment. The tale began with Sir Yvain, a knight of King Arthur's Round Table. embarking on a quest to avenge his cousin Calogrenant, who had suffered a humiliating defeat at a magical fountain in the forest of Broceliande. This fountain, guarded by a formidable knight named Esclados the Red, possessed the power to conjure a violent storm when its waters were poured upon a nearby stone. Yvain, seeking glory and vengeance, traveled to this mystical place, defeated Esclados in a fierce duel, and mortally wounded him. Following the trail of the wounded knight, Yvain found himself at a magnificent castle, the stronghold of Esclados. There he witnessed the grieving widow Laudine, a woman of unparalleled beauty and noble bearing, consumed by sorrow over her husband's death. Through a magical ring given to him by a sympathetic maiden named Lunette, Laudine's lady-in-waiting, Yvain became invisible and was able to observe Laudine's raw grief. This strange proximity, witnessing her profound sorrow, paradoxically sparked a deep affection within Yvain. Lunette, a clever and loyal servant, saw an opportunity to secure a new protector for her mistress. And the fountain, she cunningly persuaded Laudine that she needed a strong knight to defend her lands, and the magical spring, subtly suggesting that the very knight who had defeated her husband was the most powerful and suitable choice. Laudine, swayed by practical concerns and Lunette's persuasive arguments, Yvain. Against all expectations, Laudine, still mourning her previous husband, found herself drawn to Yvain. The narrative describes a swift courtship driven by both necessity and a sudden, undeniable attraction. Yvain's chivalry and sincere regret for Esclados' death, combined with Lunette's advocacy, eventually won her heart. They married quickly, a union that served both Yvain's desire for love and Laudine's need for protection. The marriage was initially portrayed as idyllic Yvain, embracing his role as lord of the castle and guardian of the fountain, enjoying a blissful domestic life with his beautiful wife. He had found both love and a worthy domain, a fulfillment of knightly aspirations that seemed complete. However, this newfound domestic contentment was soon challenged by the arrival of Sir Gawain, Yvain's dearest friend, and a fellow knight of the Round Table. Gawain, ever the champion of chivalry and adventure, admonished Yvain for settling into a life of ease. He argued that a true knight's honor lay in constantly seeking adventure, participating in tournaments, and performing heroic deeds. He reminded Yvain that knights should not become soft or complacent in marriage, but should instead use their martial prowess to earn further glory and maintain their reputation. Convinced by Gawain's persuasive arguments, Yvain sought Laudine's permission to leave for a year and a day to participate in tournaments and uphold his knightly renown. Laudine, despite her reluctance, granted his request, but with a strict condition. He must return precisely within the agreed-upon timeframe, or her love and trust would be lost. She gave him a ring, a token of her love, and a symbol of his promise. Yvain, swept up in the thrill of knightly exploits and the camaraderie of his peers, forgot his promise. The year and a day passed, and he failed to return to Laudine's castle. Breach of his vow was significant, a profound betrayal of trust in medieval marital customs. A maiden representing Laudine arrived at King Arthur's court to publicly denounce Yvain, reclaiming the ring she had given him as a symbol of their broken bond. This public shaming deeply wounded Yvain. Overwhelmed by shame and regret, he lost his mind, abandoning his armor and clothes, wandering naked and wild in the forest. He became a pitiable figure, living like a beast consumed by madness and remorse. His madness lasted for a considerable time until he was discovered by a noblewoman who recognized him. She used a magical ointment provided by Morgan Le Fay to restore his sanity. Restored to his senses, but still burdened by guilt and a profound sense of having lost Laudine, Yvain embarked on a series of penitential quests. During these adventures, he rescued a lion from a dragon, and the grateful lion became his loyal companion, fighting alongside him and earning Yvain the epithet Knight of the Lion. His subsequent deeds were heroic, performing acts of justice and defending the helpless, often without revealing his true identity. He sought to prove himself worthy of Laudine's love once more, not by direct approach, but through his actions and renewed dedication to chivalry. One of his most significant challenges came when he encountered Lunete, Laudine's loyal maiden, imprisoned and accused of treason for having advised Laudine to marry him. Lunete was facing execution unless a champion fought on her behalf. Yvain, disguised, championed Lunete, proving her innocence and saving her life. This act of loyalty and courage, performed without revealing his identity, marked a crucial step in his path to redemption. Lunete, realizing who her mysterious savior was, understood his renewed worthiness. She began to subtly work on Laudine's heart, once more praising the bravery and virtue of the Knight of the Lion without naming Yvain directly. Laudine, still bitter but softened by the tales of the mysterious knight's heroism, eventually agreed to meet this champion. Unity, using her wit, maneuvered a situation where Laudine was forced to seek the help of a knight to defend her fountain, a direct echo of how Yvain had first gained her hand. The Knight of the Lion was summoned. Yvain, now truly repentant and having proven his reformed character through countless deeds, appeared. He defended the fountain with his usual prowess. When his identity was finally revealed, Laudine, though still hurt, could not deny his transformation and the undeniable signs of his unwavering love and devotion. The narrative concludes with their reconciliation, a powerful statement on forgiveness and the enduring nature of love when coupled with genuine remorse and demonstrated commitment. Yvain and Laudine's story, as told by Chrétien de Troyes, became a foundational text for understanding the complexities of courtly love within marriage, trouting how personal failings could be overcome by true honor and relentless devotion. Number 8. King Arthur and Guinevere. The foundational union of King Arthur and Queen Guinevere forms the very bedrock of the Arthurian legends, a saga that captivated medieval audiences and continues to do so. Their story explored across countless texts from the 12th century onwards, notably in the works of Geoffrey of Monmouth, Chrétien de Troyes, and later gathered by Thomas Malory, begins as a grand tapestry of royal duty. King Arthur, destined to unite a fragmented Britain and usher in an age of peace and justice, needed a queen who matched his own noble stature and vision. Guinevere, a princess of unparalleled beauty and grace, was chosen as his bride. Her lineage, often tied to powerful kings or dukes, made her a politically advantageous match, but the literature also emphasized her personal qualities. Her intelligence, her charisma, and her ability to inspire devotion. Their marriage was, at its outset, presented as a golden age. With Guinevere by his side, Arthur established his magnificent court at Camelot, a place of peace, justice, and chivalry. The Round Table, a symbol of equality and fellowship among the greatest knights, was created under their reign. Guinevere herself was not merely a passive figure. She was often portrayed as an active participant in court life, a patron of the arts, a dispenser of justice, and a gracious hostess. Her presence lent splendor and authority to Arthur's court. Chroniclers frequently depicted her as the embodiment of medieval queenship, her regal bearing and wisdom complementing Arthur's military might and strategic brilliance. She was the anchor of his kingdom, the one who brought refinement and stability to his ambitious vision. However, even in the earliest accounts that portray their initial harmony, subtle undercurrents of the challenges to their union began to surface. While not always explicitly detailed in their initial coupling, the shadow of future discord often loomed. Guinevere's character, while admirable, was also depicted as possessing a certain willfulness, and in later narratives, a susceptibility to emotional intensity. Arthur, for his part, was a king, preoccupied with the governance of his realm, the defense of his borders, and the moral compass of his knights. Their relationship, while politically sound and outwardly harmonious, sometimes lacked the deep, passionate bond often idealized in other romances. It was a partnership of governance and shared purpose rather than one solely driven by consuming romantic love. The true test of their marriage, and ultimately its undoing, arose from the intense connection between Queen Guinevere and Sir Lancelot, Arthur's most trusted knight. This affair, though a separate focus in the Arthurian cycle, inevitably casts a long shadow over the primary relationship of Arthur and Guinevere. The literature often describes Arthur's initial blindness to the affair or his reluctance to believe such a betrayal possible from his most loyal friend in his beloved wife. Guinevere, while deeply devoted to Lancelot, never ceased to be queen, and her position as Arthur's wife was central to the stability of the kingdom. Her actions born of passion for Lancelot inadvertently put her duty as queen and the fate of Camelot into immense peril. The discovery of the affair primarily detailed in later works, like the Vulgate cycle and Malory's Le Morte d'Arthur, led to a devastating crisis. Arthur, bound by the laws of his realm and the ideals of chivalry he had so carefully cultivated, was forced to act against his wife and his dearest friend. The shame and betrayal tore at the very fabric of his kingship. Guinevere, for her part, faced public condemnation and was condemned to be burned at the stake, a sentence from which Lancelot dramatically rescued her, further deepening the rift within the kingdom. This act initiated the final tragic unraveling of Camelot. The end of their story, as depicted in the powerful conclusion of the Arthurian cycle, is one of profound loss and unfulfilled promise. Guinevere, haunted by her role in the destruction of Arthur's kingdom and the deaths of many noble knights, including Gawain, entered a convent. Her repentance was profound and sincere. She renounced the world and her past sins, dedicating her remaining life to religious devotion. Arthur, his kingdom shattered by internal strife and the devastating war with Modred, met his own tragic end. In their final moments, though physically separated, their lives remained intertwined by the kingdom they had built, and ultimately saw fall. The enduring legacy of King Arthur and Guinevere lies not just in their individual roles, but in their shared representation of a lost golden age. Their marriage, however flawed, symbolized the ambition, the glory, and ultimately the fragility of the Arthurian dream. Their story, a complex interplay of duty, love, betrayal, and consequence, served as a moral lesson and a powerful narrative of a kingdom's rise and fall, perpetually reminding medieval audiences of the delicate balance between personal desires and the demands of kingship. It is a testament to how even the most idealized unions, if not carefully nurtured and protected, can lead to the downfall of an entire world. Number 7. Aucassin and Nicolette. The charming and unconventional love story of Aucassin and Nicolette emerged from 12th or 13th century France as a unique literary form known as a chant de fable, a narrative that alternated between some verse and spoken prose. This delightful structure allowed for a lively and engaging presentation of a tale that championed pure, devoted love over societal expectations and rigid social hierarchies. The story began in the ancient kingdom of Beaucaire, where Aucassin, the son of the powerful Count Garin, was desperately in love with Nicolette, a young woman of mysterious origins. She was a Saracen captive, having been purchased in childhood and raised by the Viscount of Beaucaire. Her beauty was legendary and her character was described as exceptionally virtuous and charming. Aucassin, however, was no ordinary noble youth. He was so completely consumed by his love for Nicolette that he refused to engage in knightly duties or defend his father's lands from their enemies, the Count Bougard of Valence. He declared that he would not fight or even perform the most basic acts of chivalry unless he was granted permission to marry Nicolette. This was a radical demand, as medieval society rigidly separated nobility from commoners, and a Saracen captive, regardless of her charm or beauty, was deemed an utterly unsuitable match for a count's heir. Aucassin's parents, particularly his father, were furious and deeply embarrassed by his obsession. They pleaded, threatened, and even imprisoned Nicolette to try and break their son's will. Nicolette, for her part, was equally devoted to Aucassin. When she was imprisoned, she managed to escape her guarded tower by lowering herself with sheets and ropes. The detailed descriptions of her escape often highlighted her resourcefulness and courage. She fled into the forest, hoping to find a way to communicate with Aucassin or secure their freedom. She discovered a shepherd's hut and learned of Aucassin's continued anguish. Her determination was so strong that she would rather face the dangers of the wilderness than live without him. Meanwhile, Aucassin, consumed by despair over Nicolette's imprisonment, was released from his own confinement by his father, who needed him to fight in an upcoming battle. Aucassin reluctantly agreed, but only on the promise that he would be allowed to see Nicolette. However, his father went back on his word. Once again, Aucassin, heartbroken, refused to fight until he heard Nicolette's name. In a moment of passionate defiance, he rode into battle, but his thoughts were solely on Nicolette. He was captured by the enemy, but his captors, learning of his love, mocked him. In a sudden burst of rage and renewed purpose, Aucassin fought his way free. Driven by the desire to find Nicolette, he wandered into the very forest where Nicolette was hiding. The story often recounts their almost magical reunion as they found each other through a series of coincidences, aided by the natural world around them. Nicolette, having made a small hut in the woods, left a trail for Aucassin to follow. He eventually found her, and their embrace was a testament to their unwavering loyalty to each other. Their adventures continued as they journeyed together, facing various challenges and demonstrating their adaptability. They encountered a group of shepherds who initially mocked Aucassin's despair, but later offered him comfort and advice. Aucassin and Nicolette, despite their noble upbringing, were willing to live a simpler life in the wilderness, valuing their love above all else. They were eventually separated again by fate, swept away by a storm and shipwrecked in different lands. Nicolette landed in Carthage, a Saracen city. Through a twist of fate, she discovered that she was not a captive at all, but the daughter of the king of Carthage, stolen in childhood. This revelation provided a surprising turn in her origin story, granting her the royal lineage that had been denied her throughout her youth. Now a princess, Nicolette still longed for Aucassin. She devised a plan to return to him. She disguised herself as a minstrel, an act that was both clever and daring for a medieval princess. As a minstrel, she traveled back to Beaucaire, performing her songs in various courts. Her songs, however, were not just entertainment. They were tales of her own separation from Aucassin, carefully crafted to convey her identity and her longing for him. The narrative describes how she specifically went to Aucassin's court, where he was still consumed by grief, believing her lost forever. Her disguise allowed her to approach him directly. As she sang her poignant songs, Aucassin was deeply moved, recognizing the intimate details of their shared past. Within the lyrics, the moment of recognition was slow but profound. Aucassin, still melancholic, listened intently to her songs, his heart stirring with a faint hope he had long abandoned. Eventually, Nicolette revealed her true identity, and their final reunion was one of pure, unadulterated joy. The narrative highlights the triumph of their enduring love over all the trials they faced. With Nicolette revealed as a princess, the societal barriers that had once seemed insurmountable vanished. Aucassin's parents, now faced with a politically advantageous match, readily consented to their marriage. The chantifable concluded with Aucassin and Nicolette finally marrying and living haplifting testament to the power of true love to defy convention and conquer all obstacles, proving that devotion could truly transcend rank, religion, and the rigid rules of a medieval world. Number 6. Dante and Beatrice. The love story of Dante Alighieri and Beatrice Portinari stands as one of the most sublime and spiritually profound relations in medieval literature, deeply explored in Dante's autobiographical Vita Nuova, and serving as the guiding light of his monumental Divine Comedy in the late 13th and early 14th centuries. This was not a conventional romance, nor was it a tale of earthly passion leading to physical union. Instead, It was an idealized, almost mystical love, a muse that transcended earthly existence and inspired one of the greatest literary works of all time. Dante first encountered Beatrice when they were both very young children, about 9 years old. This first meeting, though brief, left an indelible impression on Dante, awakening within him a love so profound it would shape his entire life and artistic output. The experience was described by Dante as a spiritual awakening, a moment when his soul was touched by a divine grace. He saw Beatrice only a few times throughout his life, and their interactions were often fleeting, sometimes merely a greeting in the street. Yet for Dante, each encounter was monumental. He meticulously recorded these moments in Vita Nuova, weaving prose narrative with lyric poetry to recount the development of his love. He describes how her simple salutation, her graceful presence, brought him immense joy and spiritual elevation. Beatrice became his salvation in a spiritual sense, a source of moral and intellectual guidance, even though she was largely unaware of the depth of his devotion. His love for her was chaste, reverent, and deeply personal, kept secret from the world, a private wellspring of inspiration. A crucial moment in their story, as recounted by Dante, was the denial of the salutation. For reasons unknown to Dante, Beatrice one day withheld her usual greeting from him. This act, whether intentional or accidental on her part, plunged Dante into profound despair. He interpreted it as a sign of her disapproval, or perhaps a realization that his unspoken adoration was causing scandal. This period of anguish forced Dante to redefine his love. He realized that his joy should not depend on her earthly acknowledgement, but on the love itself, on his internal devotion. He decided that his happiness would now come solely from praising her, regardless of whether she knew or reciprocated his feelings. This shift transformed his poetic purpose, dedicating his verses to her honor and virtue, a love that transcended earthly desire. Beatrice's early death at the young age of 24 was a devastating blow to Dante. He described his grief with raw emotion, feeling as though the light had gone out of his world. Yet, even in death, Beatrice's influence on him deepened. She became his conduit to the divine, a celestial being who continued to inspire him from the heavens. His love for her evolved from an earthly devotion to a spiritual quest, a pilgrimage towards understanding, divine love, and truth. This transformation is the central theme of the Divine Comedy. In the Divine Comedy, Beatrice takes on an even more significant role. After Dante journeys through hell with Virgil as his guide, Virgil, a symbol of human reason, cannot accompany him into paradise. It is Beatrice who descends from the highest heavens to become his guide through the celestial spheres. She is no longer the earthly woman, but a glorious, radiant spirit, illuminated by divine grace. Her presence serves as a beacon leading Dante through the intricacies of Christian theology and philosophy, allowing him to ascend through the various circles of paradise towards the ultimate vision of God. Her very gaze, her smile, her words instruct and purify him. As they ascend through paradise, Beatrice gradually grows more beautiful, reflecting the increasing intensity of divine light they approach. Her beauty is not merely physical but spiritual, symbolizing truth, faith, and divine wisdom. She challenges Dante, corrects him, and guides his understanding, preparing his soul for the ultimate revelation. In the culminating moments of the Divine Comedy, Beatrice eventually leaves Dante, making way for Saint Bernard of Clairvaux to guide him to the final vision of God. This transition symbolizes that, while Beatrice, as a human spirit, can lead him to the threshold of divine understanding, direct contemplation of God requires a different kind of spiritual. However, her role as the primary catalyst for his journey and the ultimate symbol of divine love remains unquestioned. The relationship between Dante and Beatrice is often cited as the epitome of courtly love elevated to a spiritual plane. It is a love that transcends the physical, a profound intellectual and spiritual connection that inspires artistic creation and philosophical inquiry. Beatrice, through Dante's immortal words, became more than a historical figure. She became a universal symbol of the divine feminine, the perfect muse, and the guiding light towards salvation, forever cementing her place in the annals of literary and complex poetic journeys. Number 5. Troilus and Criseyde. The poignant and deeply psychological love story of Troilus and Criseyde gained its most enduring form in Geoffrey Chaucer's epic poem, Troilus and Criseyde, composed in the late 14th century. While the characters appeared in earlier medieval narratives, notably Benoit de Saint-Maur's Roman Estrato, it was Chaucer who imbued their romance with an unparalleled depth of characterization, exploring the complexities of love, loyalty, betrayal, and fate within the tragic backdrop of the Trojan War. The story unfolded amidst a protracted siege of Troy by the Greek Troilus, a valiant Trojan prince, initially scoffed at the idea of love, viewing it as a weakness. However, fate, or perhaps Cupid himself, had other plans. He fell deeply and irrevocably in love with Criseyde, a beautiful and virtuous widow, daughter of the Trojan priest Calchas, who had defected to the Greek camp. Criseyde, initially hesitant and cautious, was eventually persuaded to accept Troilus's advances, largely through the persistent and cunning mediation of her uncle, Pandarus. Pandarus, a witty and worldly figure, acted as a go-between, orchestrating secret meetings, delivering messages, and tirelessly advocating for Troilus's cause. He was a master manipulator, driven by a desire to see his niece happy, and Troilus relieved of his love sickness. The detailed descriptions of Pandarus's schemes, his witty advice, and his persistent efforts to bring the lovers together form a significant part of Chaucer's narrative, highlighting the intricate social dynamics of courtly love. The romance between Troilus and Criseyde was portrayed as a period of intense joy and mutual devotion. Chaucer's poem meticulously detailed their secret meetings, their whispered vows, and their profound emotional and physical intimacy. Troilus, once a skeptic, became the epitome of a devoted lover, his very being consumed by Criseyde. Criseyde, for her part, developed a deep affection for Troilus, valuing his unwavering loyalty and gentle nature. Their love was a private sanctuary amidst the constant turmoil of war, a fleeting moment of happiness in a world destined for destruction. The narrative emphasized their deep bond, portraying them as truly in love, bound by shared secrets and tender moments. However, the war, an external force beyond their control, soon intruded upon their private idyll. A prisoner exchange was arranged between the Trojans and the Greeks. Criseyde's father, Calchas, who had defected to the Greek side, demanded his daughter in return for a captured Trojan knight. Despite Troilus's impassioned pleas to King Priam to prevent the exchange and his desperate contemplation of elopement, Criseyde was ultimately forced to leave Troy and join her father in the Greek camp. This separation was agonizing for both lovers, a moment of profound despair. They exchanged solemn vows of fidelity, promising to remain true to each other despite the distance and the dangers of their situation. Criseyde promised to find a way to return to Troy within 10 days. Upon arriving at the Greek camp, Criseyde found herself in a hostile environment surrounded by her father's new allies. Her beauty quickly attracted the attention of Diomedes, a cunning and persistent Greek warrior. The narrative then shifts to Criseyde's psychological struggle. She was torn between her vows to Troilus, her loyalty to her father, and the harsh realities of her new circumstances. Diomedes' relentless courtship, combined with the isolation and fear she felt in the Greek camp, slowly began to wear down her resolve. The poem masterfully depicted her internal conflict, her attempts to resist, and her gradual yielding to Diomedes' advances. Her betrayal of Troilus, a pivotal and tragic event, was not presented as malicious, but as a complex act born of fear, loneliness, and perhaps a pragmatic desire for security in an uncertain world. Meanwhile, back in Troy, Troilus waited anxiously for Criseyde's return. Counting down the days with growing despair, he sent letters, searched for signs and clung to every shred of hope. As the promised 10 days turned into weeks, his hope gradually transformed into agonizing certainty of her betrayal. He received a sleeve, a token of his love from a captured Greek knight. Recognizing it as one he had given to Criseyde, seeing it on Diomedes' armor, confirmed his deepest fears. Troilus' sorrow and anguish were immense, leading him to despair and a desire for death. He raged against fate, against love, and against the world that had allowed such a profound betrayal to occur. The story concluded with Troilus' tragic death in battle against the Greeks. He was killed by the hero Achilles, fulfilling a prophecy. Chaucer added an epilogue where Troilus' soul ascended to the 8th sphere, looking down upon the world and scoffing at the vanity of earthly love and the sorrow it brought. This perspective, however, did not diminish the profound human tragedy of his love for Criseyde. Troilus and Criseyde became a medieval masterpiece, a nuanced exploration of human nature, love's vulnerabilities, and the cruel hand of fate. Chaucer's profound understanding of human emotion and his masterful narrative made this tale of love and betrayal one of the most celebrated and deeply moving works of medieval literature, immortalizing a romance that was both beautiful and ultimate literature. Number 4. Paolo and Francesca. The tragic love story of Paolo and Francesca is etched forever into the consciousness of Western literature, not through an extensive romance, but through a powerful and devastatingly brief encounter in Dante Alighieri's Inferno, written in the early 14th century. Their story, recounted in Canto, the 5th of the first part of the Divine Comedy, is arguably one of the most famous and poignant depictions of forbidden love and its tragic consequences. Dante, as the pilgrim journeying through hell, reached the second circle where the lustful were eternally swept about by a relentless, violent storm, symbolizing the uncontrolled passions that led to their sin. Amidst this tumultuous wind, Dante saw countless souls, including legendary lovers of antiquity. And then he noticed a pair of souls flying together, seemingly closer. Moved by their plight, Dante called out to them, and they paused their endless torment to speak. Francesca da Rimini, the woman of the pair, began to tell their story. She revealed that she was from Ravenna, the city where she was born. Her tragic tale was one of an arranged marriage and an illicit love affair that led to her death and that of her lover. Francesca was forced into a political marriage with Gianciotto Malatesta, the deformed and cruel lord of Rimini, as a means of securing peace between powerful rival families. However, Gianciotto had a younger brother, Paolo Malatesta, who was handsome, refined, and possessed the charm that his older brother lacked. It was with Paolo that Francesca truly fell in love, a love that was intense and immediate. Francesca recounted how their love blossomed through the innocent act of reading together. They were reading the Arthurian romance of Lancelot and Guinevere, a tale of forbidden love that mirrored their own burgeoning feelings. As they read about Lancelot's first kiss with Guinevere, their eyes met. Francesca described the moment as one of overwhelming passion, a shared gaze that revealed their unspoken desires. When we read of the longed-for smile being kissed by such a great lover, Francesca said, "He who never will be parted from me kissed my mouth all trembling." This shared moment of emotional and physical awakening, triggered by the very literature of romance, became the point of no return for them. Francesca admitted that this single kiss sealed their fate. They yielded to their passion, embarking on an adulterous affair that was destined for tragedy. Their secret, however, did not remain hidden for long. Gianciotto, Francesca's husband, and Paolo's brother discovered their illicit relationship. His rage was immediate and absolute. In a fit of jealous fury, he confronted them. The exact details of their deaths are not explicitly stated by Francesca in her brief account, but the implication is clear. Gianciotto murdered both Paolo and Francesca, catching them in the act or immediately after discovering their betrayal. They died instantly, their lives cut short by the husband's violent hand. Their bodies were placed in the same grave, a grim testament to their shared fate in both life and death. In hell, Paolo remained silent throughout Francesca's entire recounting, his head bowed, weeping mournfully, his tears a silent echo of their shared sorrow and the enduring pain of their sin. His quiet grief made Francesca's narrative even more poignant, highlighting the deep bond that still held them together, even in eternal damnation. Francesca, though in hell for the sin of lust, spoke with a profound sense of self-awareness and a lingering, undeniable love for Paolo. She did not express regret for her love, but for the consequences it brought. Her words were imbued with a tragic beauty, emphasizing the overwhelming power of passion that swept her away, comparing it to the storm that buffeted them eternally. Dante, the pilgrim, was so deeply moved by their story, by the raw emotion and the tragic circumstances of their love, that he fainted from pity. This powerful reaction from the pilgrim underscored the profound human element of their tale, making it relatable and intensely moving, despite its setting in the infernal regions. Paolo and Francesca's story became a universal symbol of doomed love, a warning against uncontrollable passion, but also a testament to the enduring power of human connection, even in the face of eternal judgment. Their brief appearance in Dante's Inferno secured their immortality in literature, making them one of the most memorable and tragic couples of the medieval imagination. Number 3. Abelard and Heloise. The tumultuous and intensely intellectual love story of Peter Abelard and Heloise, unfolding in the early 12th century, is one of the most compelling and tragic narratives from the medieval period. Preserved primarily through their own remarkable letters, their correspondence spanning years of separation and profound personal change offers an unparalleled glimpse into the complexities of love, faith, philosophy, and societal constraints. Peter Abelard was a brilliant and renowned philosopher, theologian, and logician, one of the most influential thinkers of his age. He was a Nienotic lecturer, drawing students from all over Europe to Paris to hear his revolutionary ideas and challenging theological views. He was ambitious, intellectually, audacious, and supremely confident in his abilities. Heloise was the niece of Fulbert, a canon at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. She was exceptionally intelligent, learned, and fluent in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, a rare accomplishment for a woman of her time. Her sharp intellect and thirst for knowledge were widely recognized. Fulbert, proud of his niece's intellectual prowess, sought out the best tutor for her, and he chose Abelard, inviting him to live in his house, believing that proximity would accelerate her education. This decision, driven by academic ambition, inadvertently set the stage for their scandalous affair. Abelard, in his autobiography, Historia Calamitatum, The Story of My Misfortunes, openly admitted to his own arrogance and his calculated seduction of Heloise. He confessed that he saw her beauty and intelligence as a challenge to his own pride, and he deliberately orchestrated opportunities to be alone with her. Their student-teacher relationship quickly transformed into a passionate and secret love affair. Abelard described their studies as mere pretexts for their clandestine meetings, their intellectual discussions often veering into shared intimacy. Heloise, for her part, was utterly captivated by Abelard's brilliance and charisma, falling deeply in love with him. Their physical and intellectual connection was profound, a union of two exceptional minds and passionate hearts. Their secret, however, could not remain hidden indefinitely. Heloise became pregnant, a devastating revelation in the rigid social and religious world of medieval Paris. The news threatened to destroy Abelard's burgeoning career as a scholar and a cleric. To protect his reputation and Heloise's honor, they secretly married. Heloise, however, out of her profound love and concern for Abelard's career, resisted the marriage, arguing that it would hinder his intellectual and ecclesiastical advancement. She even claimed at one point that she was not pregnant, and that they had not truly married. All to protect him, despite her resistance, the marriage proceeded in secret. Their secret marriage and the birth of their son Astrolabe further inflamed Canon Fulbert's rage. Feeling deeply dishonored and betrayed, Fulbert exacted a terrible revenge. He hired men to break into Abelard's chamber and castrate him, an act of brutal mutilation that ended Abelard's chances of further ecclesiastical advancement and profoundly marked him both physically and psychologically. This horrific event forced both Abelard and Heloise to take monastic vows. Abelard became a monk at the Abbey of Saint-Denis, and Heloise, at his insistence, became a nun at the convent of Argenteuil, the same convent where she had received her education. Years later, their unique bond found new expression through their correspondence. Abelard, having established a new monastery called the Paraclete, invited Heloise to become its abbess after her community was dispersed. It was after this that their famous letters began. Abelard first wrote his Historia Calamitatum, detailing his life's misfortunes, including his affair with Heloise. Heloise, upon reading this account, initiated a profound exchange of letters. Her initial letter, often called Letter 1, was a passionate and heart-wrenching outpouring of her enduring love for him, her lingering pain from their separation, and her intellectual challenges to his theological views on suffering and monastic life. She openly confessed that even in her monastic vows, she still longed for him, admitting that she was more devoted to him than to God. Their subsequent letters delved into philosophy, theology, and the enduring nature of their love and suffering. Abelard, now firmly within his monastic calling, sought to guide Heloise towards a more spiritual and detached form of love, urging her to find solace in God rather than in earthly affection. Heloise, however, continued to express the rawness of her human emotion, questioning his advice and revealing the profound internal conflict between her vows and her undying love for him. Their intellectual sparring and emotional honesty made their letters remarkable. They discussed the nature of free will, sin, and the true meaning of monastic dedication. The enduring legacy of Abelard and Heloise lies in the raw honesty of their letters, which preserved their story for centuries. Their narrative explored the tension between sacred and profane love, intellectual passion and carnal desire, individual will and societal constraints. Their story is a powerful testament to the enduring impact of a profound intellectual and emotionship that, despite its tragic circumstance and forced separation, continued to shape their lives and thoughts through their extraordinary written words, leaving a mark on literature. Number 2. Lancelot and Guinevere. The clandestine and ultimately destructive love affair between Sir Lancelot and Queen Guinevere stands as the most iconic and tragic forbidden, a narrative explored and extended upon by countless medieval authors from the late 12th century onwards. Chrétien de Troyes, the French poet, was among the first to give extensive literary shape to this central betrayal. In his influential work, Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart. Their relationship, though never openly acknowledged in the early days of Camelot's glory, was the insidious force that eventually led to the kingdom's downfall, a symbol of how even the noblest of ideals could be corrupted by human frailty and passion. Lancelot, King Arthur's most trusted knight, the epitome of chivalry, strength, and unwavering loyalty, found himself caught in an impossible bind. He was deeply devoted to King Arthur, his liege lord and friend, and committed to the ideals of the Round Table, yet he was consumed by an overwhelming passionate love for Queen Guinevere, Arthur's wife. This forbidden love was a central paradox of Lancelot's character. His very perfection as a knight made his transgression all the more devastating. Guinevere, for her part, was captivated by Lancelot's unparalleled prowess, his devotion, and his striking nobility. She was the queen bound by duty and marriage, but her heart was drawn to the one knight who embodied the very essence of Arthurian chivalry, yet used that chivalry to serve his love for her. The literature meticulously detailed the development of their secret affair. It often began subtly with stolen glances, coded messages, and the heightened tension of unspoken desires. Chrétien de Troyes, Knight of the Cart, dramatically portrayed the depth of Lancelot's devotion when Guinevere was abducted by the villainous Meleagant. Lancelot, desperate to rescue her, even rode in a cart, an act of extreme humiliation for a knight, indicating that he placed the queen's safety and his love for her above his own honor and reputation. Guinevere, initially cold to Lancelot due to a misunderstanding, eventually acknowledged the depth of his sacrifice, leading to their first open declarations of love and a clandestine kiss. This marked the beginning of their affair, a secret that would fester within the heart of Camelot. Their affair, though kept secret from the public eye for years, created a profound moral dilemma within the court. The ideal of courtly love, which often celebrated love outside of marriage, found its most powerful and destructive expression. Here, Lancelot often performed his greatest deeds of valor in Guinevere's name, inspired by his love for her. He saved her from various perils, championed her honor, and served as her protector. Yet every act of chivalry on her behalf only deepened the web of deceit and betrayal that bound them. The tension between Lancelot's loyalty to Arthur and his love for Guinevere created an unbearable strain on his soul, and by extension, on the very structure of the Round Table. The unraveling of their secret was a slow, agonizing process, often orchestrated by jealous or malicious knights within the court. Sir Agravain and Sir Mordred in particular were instrumental in exposing the affair to King Arthur. The discovery was catastrophic. Arthur, initially disbelieving, was eventually confronted with undeniable proof of his wife's infidelity and his best friend's betrayal. The very foundation of his kingdom, built on trust, honor, and loyalty, shattered. Arthur, bound by the strict laws and customs of his kingdom, was forced to condemn Guinevere to death by burning for treason, an act of immense personal agony for him. Lancelot, in a dramatic and violent rescue, saved Guinevere from the stake, leading to a direct war between Lancelot's faction and King Arthur's forces. This civil war, sparked by the illicit love affair, decimated the ranks of the Round Table, pitting knight against knight, friend against friend. The noble ideals of Camelot dissolved into bitter conflict and widespread destruction. Tragic end of their story, most famously recounted in Thomas Malory's Le Morte Arthur, in the 15th century, saw both Lancelot and Guinevere ultimately finding solace in religious repentance. Guinevere, overwhelmed by guilt and the ruin she had caused, retired to a nunnery, living a life of austerity and prayer. Lancelot, shattered by the loss of his king, his queen, and the kingdom he had helped destroy, became a hermit, dedicating his remaining days to God. The legacy of Lancelot and Guinevere is one of the most powerful cautionary tales in medieval literature. Their love, though passionate and deeply felt, demonstrated how forbidden desire could lead to the collapse of an entire civilization. Their story remains a compelling exploration of human weakness, loyalty versus passion, and the devastating consequences of betrayal, forever immortalizing them as the embodiment of a love that was both glorious and over ideal. Number 1. Tristan and Isolde. The legendary love story of Tristan and Isolde is perhaps the most enduring and tragic medieval romance, widely disseminated across Europe in numerous literary versions from the 12th century onwards. Its origins are shrouded in Celtic folklore, but the tale gained immense popularity through Anglo-Norman and German retellings, notably those by Thomas of Britain and Gottfried von Strasbourg. The narrative explored themes of fated love, chivalry, betrayal, and the profound, uncontrollable power of passion, making it a timeless exploration of human emotion and destiny. The story began with Tristan, a brave and noble knight, the nephew of King Mark of Cornwall. He was celebrated for his courage, his skill in hunting, and his prowess in battle. His life was defined by loyalty and service to his uncle the king. King Mark, wishing to marry and secure an heir, sent Tristan to bring back Isolde, the beautiful princess of Ireland. who possessed renowned healing powers. She was destined to be Mark's queen. During the voyage from Ireland to Cornwall, a fateful accident occurred. Isolde's mother, aware of the nature of true love, and perhaps wishing to ensure happiness for her daughter in her new marriage, had prepared a powerful love potion. This elixir was intended to be shared by Mark and Isolde on their wedding night, ensuring a lifetime of unbreakable love between them. However, through a tragic misunderstanding, or a simple twist of fate, Tristan and Isolde accidentally drank the potion themselves. Precise details of how the potion was consumed varied in different retellings. Sometimes it was given to them by Isolde's maid, Brengane, who mistook it for wine. Sometimes it was found by the lovers themselves. Regardless of the means, the effect was immediate and irreversible. The love potion ignited an irresistible, all-consuming passion between Tristan and Isolde, binding their souls together in a powerful and fated bond. This was no ordinary earthly love. It was a magical, unbreakable connection that transcended societal norms, oaths, and consequences. They were now irrevocably in love, despite Isolde's impending marriage to Tristan's uncle, King Mark. Journey became a crucible of their burgeoning love as they struggled with the moral implications of their desire versus their duty. Yet the potion's power was too great to resist. Upon their arrival in Cornwall, Isolde married King Mark as planned. However, her heart and soul remained irrevocably bound to Tristan. Their love affair continued in secret, a perilous dance of deception and stolen moments. They met in hidden groves, communicated through loyal intermediaries, and went to great lengths to hide their illicit relationship from King Mark and his suspicious courtiers. The literature often described their elaborate schemes to fool the king, including a famous scene where Isolde cleverly avoids a trap by swearing a deceptive oath, carefully worded to be technically true but morally false, confirming her loyalty to both her husband and Tristan in the presence of witnesses. Despite their cunning, their affair was eventually discovered, or strongly suspected, by the jealous courtiers who repeatedly tried to expose them to King Mark. Mark, a kind but often naive king, was torn between his love for Isolde, his trust in Tristan, and the damning evidence presented by his advisors. He repeatedly banished Tristan only to recall him, swayed by his nephew's reputation or Isolde's pleas. Tristan endured periods of exile, his suffering intensified by his separation from Isolde. Even in exile, his devotion to Isolde remained absolute, and he often found ways to return to Cornwall for clandestine meetings, driven by the irresistible force of the love potion. In one significant episode, Tristan, during a period of exile in Brittany, married another woman, also named Isolde. Isolde of the White Hands, the daughter of the Duke of Brittany. This marriage, however, was never consummate. Tristan remained faithful to his first Isolde in spirit, unable to betray his magical bond to her. His marriage to the second Isolde only served to highlight the unique, fated nature of his love for the queen. The tragic climax of the story unfolded when Tristan was mortally wounded by a poisoned spear, a wound that only Queen Isolde, with her famed healing abilities, could cure. Tristan sent a messenger to Isolde, instructing him to hoist a white sail if Isolde was on board the returning ship, and a black sail if she was not. As the ship approached, Tristan, too weak to see for himself, asked Isolde of the White Hands about the sail. Out of jealousy or perhaps a moment of bitter resentment, she lied, telling him the sail was black. Believing that Isolde had not come for him, Tristan succumbed to despair and died. Shortly after, Isolde arrived, saw his lifeless body, and died of a broken heart beside him. The story often concluded with King Mark discovering their intertwined bodies, finally understanding the true depth of their fated love. He grieved for both of them and had them buried side by side. From their graves, in some versions of the legend, a vine or a briar grew, intertwining above their tombs, symbolizing their unbreakable bond even in death. The tale of Tristan and Isolde became a cornerstone of medieval romance, a profound exploration of love as an irresistible force, a passion that transcended human law and societal constraints.